Have you ever wondered why some people seem to achieve more with less effort? And did you know that only 20% of our time accounts for 80% of the work we accomplish? Or that 80% of all our results in every area of life stem from a mere 20% of our endeavors? One of the greatest secrets of highly effective people is the 80-20 principle. Richard Koch has revealed how it works, and in his book, he shows us how we can use it to improve nearly everything. Make sure to watch this video until the end to learn how you can unlock the enormous potential of the magic 20% and transform your job, your career, your businesses, and your life. When Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian, was working in his garden in the late 19th century, he noticed an imbalance. He observed that some pea pods had a lot more peas than others. After counting the number of peas in each pea pod, he found that 20% of the pea pods produced 80% of the peas. He later used this formula to demonstrate that 80% of the wealth in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. Similar imbalances can be observed everywhere. But why is Pareto's distribution not more balanced? Well, there's an explanation. Not every cause has the same impact on results. Causes can be roughly divided into two categories. One that has a great impact on results, the minority, and one that has only a small impact, the majority. The result is an 80-20 split known as Pareto's Law. We wear 20% of our clothes 80% of the time. 20% of drivers are responsible for 80% of all accidents. 20% of a country's population owns 80% of its land. 20% of criminals commit 80% of all crimes. 20% of beer drinkers drink 80% of the beer in the world. Many of us can look back on projects we worked on and thereby find out that most of our work was done right before the final deadline. In the few days when we were almost out of time, we achieved more than in all the previous weeks put together. If we want to adopt the right 80-20 mindset, it's important to understand that the largest share of the results or output is produced by just a small part of the work or input. It should be mentioned that the 80-20 principle is a simplification, and in reality the ratio tends to differ. It could be 90-10 or 70-30, for example. To us as humans, thinking like this seems unnatural, since we expect balance and fairness. But balance is not the natural state of the world, imbalance is, and many people consider this fact as unfair. But this knowledge can help us to improve our work process to get better results. Let's think about it. We achieve 80% of the results with just 20% of the effort we put in. That means that 80% of our work is inefficient. So if we could cut out this wasted time and replace it with the things we do during the efficient 20%, we would be multiplying our results. But the question is, how can we do this? Let's start by analyzing our work processes to find out which parts are inefficient. It could be that we waste a lot of time, for example, by overthinking possible mistakes we could make or planning too much before finally getting started. By identifying these inefficient parts and rearranging our process without them, we can greatly increase our efficiency. Similarly, we can also apply the 80-20 principle in a business. Let's think about it. 80% of a company's profits come from 20% of the sales and from 20% of the products. What if we prioritized these products and focused on selling more of them? Many people assume that successful companies, which are popular worldwide, had tons of products to choose from. But mostly, that's not the case. Because a broad range of products require complicated logistics and more training for salespeople, and also a lot more administrative work. All factors that increase the overall costs of additional products. On the other hand, simplifying a business reduces costs and thereby its profitability is increased. And if some 20% of customers generate 80% of a business, we should concentrate on identifying them and targeting our marketing efforts on them to convince them to keep buying. The 80-20 principle can also help us to learn and study more efficiently. Example: from all of the books we should know, the question paper in exams roughly contains 20% of the syllabus. This means that 80% of the knowledge in books is secondary and not that important for a good test result. With this knowledge, we can easily schedule our preparation by focusing on covering the most important 20% of our syllabus first. It's important that we work smarter, not always harder. The 80-20 principle can also help us in our daily life. Of course, it's difficult to perform an analysis of our relationships, but let's try to think 80-20. Because just like in business, only 20% of our friendships are meaningful. Let's always ask ourselves, who are the most important people in our life, and how much quality time do we spend with them? By using the approach toward life, we can get our priorities straight and focus on the 20% that make us happy. Because with 80-20 thinking, we strive for quality, not quantity, and focus on deepening the most valuable 20% of our relationships. From now on, let's think about who are the people that matter most in our life. To achieve an overall better quality of life through the 80-20 principle, let's think about how much time we spend doing things that make us unhappy. We could try to identify the distribution of happiness and unhappiness in our daily life and trace their causes. Which 20% of your life provides you with 80% of your happiness? Once you have defined the 80% that create only little happiness, you could reduce the time you spend doing those things. And if it's your job that makes you unhappy, you could try to think of ways to change that by looking at other jobs or decreasing your working hours. Because once we manage to cut down on the things that make us unhappy, we'll have more time and also more energy to spend on things that make us happy. If we try to find ways to spend more time engaging in the 20% of activities that produce 80% of our happiness, we will have a happier life. What do you think about the 80-20 principle? Do you think it can help us to single out the most important factors in any situation? Comment below and be sure to subscribe.